After I made my first video on the new seemingly one-hit wonder indie horror game Garten of BanBan, I did not think I'd be making another when its sequel released. After all, I was actually the first YouTuber to make a video criticising the game, and it hadn't even blown up that much at the time. Outside of Twitter anyway. But oh my god dude, Garten of BanBan 2 is just shamelessly terrible. Why this isn't a DLC expansion to the first game makes absolutely no sense to me. For all the people saying these games are satire, they are absolutely not, and here's why with one image. Yeah, the developers are actually trying to convince people they had a thought process behind the designs of these characters. Alright, let's design the mascots for our game. Speaking of the devs, after the first game blew up, the Euphoric brothers, who literally blocked Urya on Twitter for making a small sarcastic comment by the way. Like guys, he was literally responsible for blowing up your game with the hashtag birdup meme and you're blocking him because he mocked you a little. And then they proceeded to play victim by tweeting this in response to criticism. Anyways, yeah, the developers of this game, the Euphoric brothers, took the opportunity to make a sequel, and this time, it costs money, so no one can defend it by saying, oh, you can't criticise this game because it's free. Well, guess what? BanBan 2 requires your money to play, and unless you want to do a Fiznam and speedrun the game in under 2 hours to be able to refund it, those slimy developers are going to be taking your money and using it to make Garten of BanBan 3. Yep, you heard me correct, there is already a Steam page for the third game. Are you taking the Alright, let's talk about what this sequel actually has to offer, outside of the ridiculously overpriced merchandise. A reminder that I really don't like making completely negative videos, but my god, I just can't resist keeping my opinions to myself on this one. For videos of me alternatively praising an actual good game whilst playing through it, you can click the card in the corner for my playthrough of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, and the Revisited series I'm currently doing where I replay the whole game from start to finish. Anyway, here's why Garten of BanBan's sequel is just bad in almost every way outside of the fact that they actually removed the link to the merch store on the main menu. I mean, fair enough, but it was kind of a no-brainer in the first place. The first Garten of BanBan can be beaten in as little as a few minutes, and if you really take your time then like half an hour or something. The sequel, however, is a lot longer, like a sequel should be, right? You know, more content, an expansion on the story, more characters, and all the general stuff. Well, the Euphoric brothers, although they did include all this in the sequel, had a particular main goal whilst making this. And that goal was to specifically drag out this game as long as possible so that it couldn't be refunded on Steam. This isn't a little theory of mine, it's a painfully obvious fact that's easily visible throughout playing it. Let me explain. For those who don't know, after buying a game on Steam, you're eligible to request a refund if you've played it for less than 2 hours. The developers had this fact very much in mind throughout the creation of the game, which, by the way, took less than 2 months to make. I fully believe that they watched Urya's video and really took it to heart when he said,
"And I also hope it's longer than 2 hours for the sake of their bank account, because everyone will probably refund it if it's not."
Honestly, they probably heard it and thought, wait, you can do that? Well, time to drag out the game for as long as possible. Let's add a segment with a literal fucking snail to extend the runtime. At least BanBan 1 didn't overstay its welcome, you know. It was short, simple. This one is just plain boring. The majority of sections and sequences in this are just unnecessarily long and not only dragged out for the sake of it, but make absolutely no sense for the in-universe context. Take this section for example. A huge area with what looks to be blocks of flats or apartments towering over and around you. At first you might think, okay, this is weird, but then you think, hold on, all of this is underneath some kindergarten? You're telling me you've got this tiny daycare centre with a cafeteria that's only got room for 2 tables in it, and then underneath this massive open area with walls made up of blocks of apartment buildings? This literally makes no sense. And not only that, this is 100% inspired by that one Backrooms level. I say inspired, more like blatantly copied. At least that is very apparently meant to feel like it's in some sort of different dimension or in a place where your surroundings definitely don't make sense on purpose. I don't know what the lore of the Backrooms are. Also in this area there's this huge guy that appears. He's never explained, does nothing, has definitely no place in a kindergarten, and was likely only put in just because, well, they've got to have at least something slightly unnerving in this horror game. And that's another thing, this game is not scary, and I don't mean that lightly. People say a lot of horror games aren't scary, and particularly certain indie horror ones. But this just feels like false advertising. I genuinely cannot look at a single section of this game and see anyone getting scared or even creeped out at anything, other than that thing that I mentioned before, which is nothing more than, again, slightly unnerving. Another part of the game has you in a classroom being taught different subjects by your teacher BanBanina, who's BanBan's girlfriend or something. Oh, and this guy is BanBan, by the way. I mistakenly took Jumbo Josh for BanBan in my other video, as, you know, he's all over the marketing for it. And BanBan doesn't even show up once in the first game. Yeah, it makes sense, guys. Let's have the main character of your game not even fucking feature in it. I also hate this character design, by the way. Anyways, I digress. So you're in this classroom and it is literally just this long, boring and totally uninteresting section where the mascot asks you 3 questions, you answer them, you go to lunch break, and you repeat this 3 times before she walks out with a default stock walking animation because she even got tired of the game's BS. And that's another thing. The mascot characters are the teachers in this place. Not only is BanBanina a teacher, but you've also got Principal BanBan. Yeah, just another thing that leaves me scratching my head trying to work out the thought process behind the development of this game and its story, if you would even call it that. Plus, when you die, the game really punishes you by making you replay majority of the section you just went through. Like here with the baby Opila birds, you have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to catch these guys and put them in a nest which is at the end of a long hallway. And if you mess up once, then you have to recollect all the birds you have just collected. It's actual bad game design at its finest, and it's so obvious it was done with specific intent to drag out this section. Like, my god dude, the Euphoric Brothers are actual slimes for making it like this, man. Oh my god. Then, after a lot of walking around, doing pointless tasks, and getting your drone to open a door by pressing 3 buttons right next to each other, instead of 1, because again, gotta make every part as long as possible, the ending section finally happens. And it's so unsatisfying. I mean, I'll probably be unsatisfied with whatever they made, but that's besides the point. You run from BanBanina and Jumbo Josh throughout this long hallway and stand at the end of it where Josh smashes BanBanina. Not like that. And takes her into the ceiling. Then you go down a hole in an elevator reminiscent of the first game's ending. Except this time, no big reveal of another character. It just ends. Then it promotes the third game, which, at the rate we're heading, will probably release in a couple months. Part of me is tempted to ramble about other parts of this that just don't make sense, or again, put in for the sake of just dragging it out, or giving you obscure notes of lore which are only there to try and get people interested and talking about why everyone went missing in this weird ass building. Brothers, it's been done to death already, and wow, I didn't even touch on all the stock assets used throughout the environments. Paid objects like these cannons look so out of place compared to everything else in the game because they were made by someone who actually can model stuff. Seriously, you should see the regs for the things that the devs modelled. In fact, the only models the devs made themselves are the character models, and this applies to the first game too. But Phoenix, this game is good, it has voice acting. Oh yeah? Well, here's how one of the Euphoric Brothers sound normally.
And we're very grateful for it. If you had taken the time to check out our other games, you may have noticed something. Garten of BanBan is far from being our first game.
And here is their voice for BanBan.
I needed something from you that I could only get if you were unconscious, and I was all out of sedatives. If you'd seen me, you wouldn't have trusted me, I know it.
Like, Jesus dude, there was really no effort here whatsoever. I guess the only positive thing about this is that they featured Theft King in the game. You know, that really polite and humble YouTuber. Okay, I'm done. Hashtag birdup on Twitter and